Gorgeous sunsets typify Herman Tilke's Bahrain circuit. That's because it's a dusk race and it's right in the middle of the desert. Brilliant to watch. Lots of elevations, surprisingly. You would imagine it being a desert circuit to be relatively flat, but it's not. There are two downhill sections. The first is much more interesting than the second because it's got some nice S's in it. We'll talk about that a little bit later on. What I want to talk about is turns 9 and 10, which on the Grand Prix calendar is one of the best sections of road, I think, let alone here at Bahrain. You can see it all begins. We've got the classic racing line there with our animation going past. That's the Piero Taruffi perfect line with the geometrical apices. But what we really are looking for here is just after the DRS detection zone there, that little yellow dot, you can see where the 9 is. That is an obvious apex for a very quick kink. And of course, the temptation for most drivers is to use the curb on the inside to make that kink as straight as possible. Formula One cars probably in 5th or 6th gear at this point, very, very fast, 145, 150 miles an hour, maybe even more. A lot of G load, of course, lateral load. But then immediately after that, this is where the trouble starts because turn 10 is a very, very sharp left-hander. We could call it a hairpin if you like. First, second gear, and it's all about getting a really clean exit onto the straight where you see the DRS activation there. That's a longish straight, Formula 2 paddocks just on your right there, and it goes into quite a quick corner. So speed out of turn 10 is absolutely critical. You want to minimize wheel spin. You want the car rotated in the middle of turn 10 as quickly and as efficiently as possible, and you want the car traveling absolutely in a straight line. So how do you do that if you're approaching that slow corner through this very fast kink with all this G load on the car? Well, you do it by not hitting the apex at turn 9 and being as courageous or as skillful as you can be to be as in the middle of the road as much as you can be so you can give yourself a nice wide approach into 10 and what Rob Wilson would call a flat car area in which to do all your braking to minimize the possibility of the left front wheel locking or running wide with a bit of understeer and having to play with the rear to kill the understeer and then getting wheel spin as a result. Now, most drivers do this. We're talking the top level here. We're talking Formula 1 drivers and Formula 2. All of them kind of do this. They know that they've got a brake for turn 10, and so they run a little bit wider than they normally would through that kink. But here's the thing. Between some of the great Grand Prix drivers, there is still nonetheless a difference. I'd be willing to bet that the difference between Lewis Hamilton and Valtteri Bottas through that kink would be at least half a metre away from the curb. Lewis will be slightly more in the middle of the road, right on the edge of the marbles which are building up. Valtteri will be away from the curb, giving himself a nice wide area, but not quite in the same zone as Lewis. Very difficult to see that on TV because the cameras are on the outside of the corner looking at the cars as they go around and on the inside looking for possible inside fronts locking up. That's the spectacular view for Formula One on television. But actually to see the differences requires watching from the outside of the corner with your head absolutely stationary, watching the position of the cars as they go past. And of course, TV cameras never do that because they like to follow the car through the corner. But some of us have done that, and it's astonishing the differences between one driver and another. Lewis is very good through there. Daniel Ricciardo, excellent through there, and Nico Rosberg was good too. I'm sure Valtteri would be excellent, but we're talking half a metre, and that's, you could say that's not much. But at 150 miles an hour, approaching a tight left-hander, it is indeed a lot. There's one other byproduct from all of this, and that is that if you're following another car and you are able to approach turn 10 from a slightly wider angle, give yourself a more consistent braking area, there's more chance that the driver in front might be locking up an inside front and gives you then an opportunity to do what they call the undercut these days and out-accelerate him because you just got that cleaner acceleration out of turn 10. I think it's a brilliant section of road. I wish it was replicated on every circuit actually because you don't see it very often, this very fast approach with the car carrying G, breaking into a tight left-hander. Oddly, the last corner in Valencia, a circuit that nobody seemed to like, was a little bit like that as well, but Valencia's well gone. Let's take a look at the circuit as a whole now. It is a classic Tilke circuit in the sense that it has long straights with hard braking areas at the end of them. Turn 1 is, well, I keep saying it, is classic Tilke. Look at Sepang, similar thing. You can take all that trouble to get down on the inside, do a pass, and the guy on your outside can easily get back in front going through 2 and 3. Great for television, frustrating for the drivers. Down the hill, there's quite a lot of room, and that's where, of course, Lewis and Nico did a lot of repassing in that famous race of theirs. A great section of road, very exhilarating for the driver and difficult, I think, to capture the speed at which they're doing down there, particularly the 2018 Formula One cars. Out of turn 11 into 12, an interesting change of direction required. That's quite difficult to see on TV. Yes, you can watch the onboards, you can see them doing this with the car, but what are the differences between Fernando Alonso, Romain Grosjean, and say Charles Leclerc through there? It's going to be difficult to see, but if you are lucky enough to be in the right vantage point, that is definitely another spot on which to watch. Finally, the last corner is just one of these places, classic Tilke again. Don't lock that inside front, focus on the exit, get a really clean exit, all about traction. But really this circuit, the heart and soul is turn 9 and 10. Can't wait.